A woman stepped into Judge Caprio's courtroom and didn't utter a single word. Not a greeting, not an explanation, nothing. At first, the room shifted uncomfortably. People assumed she was ignoring the judge until the truth hit everyone like a thunderbolt. Because what this woman did with her last $360 wasn't reckless. It was one of the most selfless acts Judge Caprio had ever seen. She was supposed to use that money to pay her own fines. Instead, she gave every dollar to help a stranger's child in crisis. And when Judge Caprio discovered why, his reaction became one of the most unforgettable moments ever seen in that courtroom. Before we dive deeper into this powerful story, hit subscribe to Case Closed, the channel that brings you the real moments where compassion and justice collide. And tell me in the comments, have you ever helped someone you didn't even know? Also, where in the world are you watching from? Stories like this remind us that kindness speaks every language.
This isn't just about parking tickets. This is about sacrifice, courage, and what happens when a judge discovers true heroism standing right in front of him. It's a busy Thursday afternoon in April at Providence Municipal Court, and Judge Frank Caprio is working through his afternoon docket when he notices a case that seems routine on paper, but will soon become extraordinary. Isabella Martinez, multiple parking violations with unpaid fines totaling $360, with a note indicating defendant requests accommodation. The courtroom buzzes with its typical afternoon energy, people shuffling through paperwork, attorneys conferring with clients, and the steady rhythm of cases being processed under Judge Caprio's fair and compassionate guidance. At exactly 2:15 p.m., the bailiff calls the case, and something unusual immediately captures everyone's attention. A young woman in her late 20s approaches the defendant's table with an unusual grace. Her movements are deliberate, her posture confident, but there's something different about the way she observes the courtroom. Isabella Martinez has striking dark eyes that seem to take in every detail of the proceedings around her. She's dressed professionally in a simple navy blazer and carries herself with quiet dignity, but she moves through the courtroom with the heightened awareness of someone who experiences the world differently than most. What immediately strikes court observers is how Isabella's eyes constantly scan the room, not with nervousness, but with the acute visual attention of someone who relies entirely on sight to understand her environment. She positions herself at the defendant's table with perfect precision, facing directly toward Judge Caprio's bench. Behind her sits her older sister, Carmen, a woman in her 30s who keeps glancing between Isabella and the judge with obvious concern. Carmen carries a large purse and keeps checking her phone, clearly anxious about the proceedings ahead. And friends, before I show you this incredible moment of silent communication, let me ask you something. Have you ever tried to imagine navigating a complex legal system without being able to hear a single word? Have you witnessed someone face their fears with quiet courage? Share in the comments about moments what Isabella Martinez, the court clerk, announces, consulting his files while looking toward the defendant's table with slight confusion as he notices the young woman's unusual attentiveness to visual cues rather than audio ones. Isabella rises from her seat with fluid grace, her eyes immediately locking onto Judge Caprio's face. She approaches the bench with confident steps, but something about her absolute silence creates an unexpected tension in the courtroom. Judge Caprio looks down from his bench with those wise, compassionate eyes that have seen every kind of human struggle. But Isabella's complete stillness and intense visual focus creates an entirely new dynamic in his courtroom. "Good afternoon, Miss Martinez," Judge Caprio says in his usual warm tone, but Isabella doesn't respond. Her eyes remain fixed on his face with an intensity that suggests she's trying to read something beyond words. The silence stretches for several seconds. Courtroom officials glance nervously at each other, unsure of how to interpret Isabella's unusual behavior. It is clear that something very special is about to take place. Observers begin to shift uncomfortably. wondering if the defendant is being disrespectful or simply nervous. Judge Caprio tries again, speaking more slowly and clearly. "Ms. Martinez, can you hear me?" Still no response. Isabella continues to watch Judge Caprio's face intently, but her silence creates a palpable tension throughout the courtroom. Carmen, watching from the gallery, begins to stand as if to intervene, but Judge Caprio gently raises his hand, sensing that something important is unfolding. "Ms. Martinez," Judge Caprio says this time, speaking directly toward her and making sure she can see his face clearly. "Are you all right?" Isabella's response is subtle but unmistakable. She begins to move her hands in fluid, graceful gestures. Her fingers dance through the air with precise, meaningful movements that immediately reveal the truth. Isabella is communicating in American Sign Language. The courtroom collectively holds its breath as everyone realizes simultaneously that Isabella Martinez is deaf, and she's been trying to lip read and communicate through sign language this entire time. Judge Caprio immediately understands the situation, and his expression transforms from confusion to recognition. Within minutes, Sarah Chen, a certified ASL interpreter, arrives and positions herself where both Isabella and Judge Caprio can see her clearly. "Ms. Martinez," Judge Caprio says, with Sarah interpreting, "I apologize for the confusion. Please tell me how I can help you today." And friends, if you're already feeling the power of this moment where barriers are breaking down through simple human understanding, hit that like button, because what Isabella reveals next about her unpaid fines will show you a level of selflessness that will restore your faith in humanity. With Sarah interpreting, Isabella's story begins to unfold, and what emerges is far more complex and beautiful than anyone in the courtroom could have anticipated. "Your Honor," Isabella signs, with Sarah voicing her words, "I want to thank you for your patience and for providing an interpreter. I know I should have requested one in advance, but I wasn't sure I qualified for the service." Judge Caprio settles back in his chair, giving Isabella his complete attention. The entire courtroom becomes silent, recognizing they're about to witness something special. "Ms. Martinez, I see here that you have multiple parking violations with unpaid fines totaling $360. Can you help me understand your situation?" Isabella's hands begin to move with increasing confidence as she tells her story through sign language. "Your Honor, I work as a graphic designer for a small nonprofit organization. My salary is modest, but I love my work because we create educational materials for children with disabilities." Sarah's voice carries Isabella's words with clear emotion as the story continues. "The parking tickets are all from downtown near the Providence School for the Deaf. I volunteer there 3 evenings a week, teaching sign language to families who have deaf children but don't know how to communicate with them." Judge Caprio immediately understands the situation, and his case involves someone who dedicates significant time to helping others, despite her own challenges. "That's very admirable, Ms. Martinez. But can you help me understand why these fines haven't been paid? The dates show some of these tickets are several months old." Isabella pauses, her hands hesitating as she prepares to reveal something personal and difficult. "Your Honor, 4 months ago, I learned about a family, the Rodriguez family, whose 8-year-old daughter, Maria, was born deaf. The parents had been saving for years to enroll her in a special program that would give her intensive language development and educational support. But the program costs exactly $360 per month, and the family was $60 short. Without this program, Maria would—" Isabella's eyes fill with tears as she signs her response. "Your Honor, I gave them the exact amount I had saved to pay my parking fines. I couldn't let Maria miss this opportunity because I made mistakes with parking meters." The courtroom falls into complete reverent silence as everyone absorbs the magnitude of Isabella's sacrifice. Sarah continues interpreting. "I know it was wrong not to pay the fines, But I kept thinking, these are just parking violations. But Maria's language development can't wait. Every month she misses is a month she can never get back. Judge Caprio stands from his bench, clearly moved by what he's hearing. Ms. Martinez, you gave away your fine money to help a child you barely knew access education. Yes, Your Honor. In the deaf community, we understand that language development is everything. A hearing child learns language naturally from birth. A deaf child has only a small window to develop language skills, and if we miss it, it's gone forever. Isabella continues signing, her passion evident in her gestures. Maria is thriving in the program now. She's learning to read, to express complex thoughts, to dream about her future. That was worth more to me than avoiding parking tickets. Judge Caprio asks the question everyone is wondering. Ms. Martinez, if you gave away your fine money, how were you planning to pay these violations? Isabella's response reveals the depth of her character. I was working extra freelance projects on weekends and evenings, trying to earn the money back. It was taking longer than expected, but I was determined to pay what I owed. She pulls out a folder from her bag and hands documents to Sarah, who passes them to Judge Caprio. These are receipts showing the payments I've made to the Rodriguez family. And here's my payment plan showing how I was earning money to pay my fines. I wasn't trying to avoid responsibility. I was just putting a child's needs first. And guys, if you're not completely overwhelmed, Judge Caprio takes several moments to review Isabella's documents. And as he reads, his expression transforms from judicial consideration to deep personal admiration. When he finally speaks, his words carry the weight of 30 years of court experience and the recognition that he's encountering something truly exceptional. Miss Martinez, he begins, ensuring Sarah can interpret clearly. In 30 years on this bench, I have never encountered someone who sacrificed their own legal compliance to ensure a child's educational development. He pauses, looking directly at Isabella with profound respect. What you did wasn't just generous. It was an act of understanding that most people would never consider. You recognized that Maria's language development couldn't wait, but parking fines could. Judge Caprio continues, you understood something that many people don't, that for a deaf child, early language access isn't just education. It's the foundation for an entire lifetime of communication and opportunity. Isabella nods, tears streaming down her face as she recognizes that Judge Caprio truly understands the significance of her decision. Tell me about Maria now. How's she doing in the program? Isabella's hands begin to move with excitement and pride as she shares Maria's progress. Your Honor, Maria is reading at grade level now. She's making friends, participating in class discussions, and last week she told her parents in perfect sign language that she wants to become a teacher for deaf children. Sarah's voice carries Isabella's emotion as she continues. Her parents have learned sign language too, and now their whole family can communicate together. Maria isn't isolated in her own home anymore. Judge Caprio nods with deep understanding. And what about your work at the Providence School for the Deaf? I've been able to help 12 other families learn to communicate with their deaf children. Some parents drive from 2 hours away to attend my classes because there's so little support available. Judge Caprio stands and comes around his bench, approaching Isabella with Isabella's emotion as she continues. Her parents have learned sign language too, and now their whole family can communicate together. Maria isn't isolated in her own home anymore. Judge Caprio nods with deep understanding. And what about your work at the Providence School for the Deaf? I've been able to help 12 other families learn to communicate with their deaf children. Some parents drive from 2 hours away to attend my classes because there's so little support available. Judge Caprio stands and comes around his bench, approaching Isabella what happens immediately after Isabella's court appearance becomes a beautiful example of how one person's generosity can inspire an entire community to action. As Isabella exits the courtroom, she's approached by several people who witnessed her incredible sacrifice and Judge Caprio's response. Dr. Amanda Foster, an audiologist who had been in court for an unrelated matter, stops Isabella and, through Sarah's continued interpretation, makes an extraordinary offer. Isabella, I run a private audiology practice and I want to provide free hearing evaluations and hearing aid consultations for any family you work with. Your sacrifice for Maria should be multiplied, not just admired. Mr. James Wilson, a local businessman who owns several parking lots downtown, approaches with another incredible offer. Ms. Martinez, I'm creating reserved parking spaces near the School for the Deaf, specifically for volunteers and families. Your parking troubles are over, and so are everyone else's who comes to help. But the most touching response comes from an unexpected source. Maria Rodriguez herself, accompanied by her parents, who had been contacted by court staff after Judge Caprio's public praise. 8-year-old Maria approaches Isabella and in clear, confident sign language tells her, Ms. Isabella, because of you, I can tell my mama and papa that I love them. Before, I could only feel it. Now I can say it. Isabella kneels down to Maria's level, tears streaming down her face as she signs back. Maria, you've given me more than I ever gave you. Watching you succeed makes everything worth it. Maria's mother, Rosa Rodriguez, speaks through Sarah's interpretation. Isabella, you saved our daughter's future. We didn't know that without early language development, Maria might never have been able to fully communicate. You gave her the gift of language itself. Within days, Isabella's story spreads throughout Providence and beyond. Local news interviews her with Sarah interpreting, and Isabella uses the platform to advocate for greater support. Local businesses begin offering discounts in services specifically for families dealing with deafness, creating a more inclusive community infrastructure. 6 months later, Isabella has expanded her volunteer work from 3 evenings to an official part-time position at the School for the Deaf, where she coordinates family support services. Every family I help, Isabella signs, I remember that feeling of knowing a child needs help and being able to provide it immediately. That's what community should be. Immediate response to need. Her supervisor reports,
Isabella has helped over 50 families navigate the complex world of deaf education and services. She's become our most effective family advocate and subscribers. This is what makes Isabella's story so powerful. She didn't just help one child, she discovered her calling and transformed how an entire community supports families facing deafness. 1 year later, Isabella returns to Judge Caprio's courtroom, not for legal troubles, but for a celebration that brings together everyone whose lives were touched by her incredible sacrifice. The courtroom is filled with families from the Providence School for the Deaf, volunteers, community leaders, and the original courthouse staff who witnessed Isabella's transformative moment. Judge Caprio beams as he sees Isabella approach with Sarah interpreting, accompanied by Maria Rodriguez, who is now 9 years old and thriving academically and socially. Isabella, Judge Caprio says warmly, welcome back to my courtroom, but this time you're here as our guest of honor. Isabella signs her response. Your Honor, this past year has been incredible. What started as my embarrassment about unpaid parking tickets became the most meaningful work of my life. She gestures toward the filled courtroom. These families represent 50 children who now have access to language development services because our community decided to support them. Judge Caprio nods with obvious pride. Tell me about the scholarship fund that was created in your name. The Isabella Martinez Language Development Fund has helped 32 children access early intervention services. But the most Maria Rodriguez steps forward and in confident sign language, interpreted by Sarah, addresses Judge Caprio directly. Your Honor, because Miss Isabella helped me, I can tell you that I want to become a judge like you someday. I want to help people like Miss Isabella helped me." Judge Caprio's eyes fill with tears as he responds, "Maria, any courtroom would be lucky to have a judge who learned about justice from Isabella Martinez." Rosa and Carlos Rodriguez approach with their own update. "Your Honor, we've learned sign language and our whole family communicates together now. But more than that, we've become advocates for other families facing the same challenges we did." Isabella presents Judge Caprio with a photo album documenting the community changes that resulted from her case. "Your Honor, here are pictures of the new Family Resource Center, the volunteer parking program, the expanded interpreter services, and the 12 new support groups for families with deaf children." Judge Caprio examines each photo with genuine amazement. "Isabella, one act of selflessness created all of this." "Your Honor, I think the selflessness was always there in our community. My situation just gave people a chance to express it." Judge Caprio stands and addresses the packed courtroom. "Ladies and gentlemen, 1 year ago, Isabella Martinez taught us that true justice isn't just about following rules. It's about recognizing when human compassion should guide our decisions." He turns to Isabella. "You showed us that sometimes breaking a small rule to serve a greater good isn't just acceptable. It's admirable. Isabella, I have something special for you." Judge Caprio presents her with an official city proclamation. "The City of Providence hereby declares this Isabella Martinez Day, recognizing your sacrifice for Maria Rodriguez and your ongoing service to families throughout our community." Isabella signs her response through Sarah. "Your Honor, every day should be a day when we put others first." Isabella Martinez's story spread far beyond Providence, becoming a symbol of how individual sacrifice can transform entire communities, and how true justice considers human need alongside legal requirements. 2 years after her court appearance, Isabella was invited to speak at the National Conference on Deaf Education, where she addressed a room full of educators, advocates, and policymakers, with the same quiet dignity she had shown in Judge Caprio's courtroom. "When I gave Maria Rodriguez my fine money," Isabella signed to the conference, "I wasn't trying to be heroic. I was simply responding to immediate need with immediate action." Her presentation received a standing ovation, and 3 universities offered her full scholarships to pursue graduate degrees in deaf education policy. Judge Caprio, who attended virtually, later reflected, "Isabella didn't just help one child that day. She demonstrated that our legal system works best when it recognizes the difference between technical violations and moral obligations." The Isabella Martinez Language Development Fund has now helped over 100 children access early language services. Each family commits to helping the next family in line, creating a continuous cycle of support. The Providence School for the Deaf has become a model program, with delegations visiting from around the country to learn about their community-supported family services model. Now working full-time as the Family Advocacy Coordinator for the school, Isabella continues to help families navigate the complex world of deaf education and services. "Every family I meet," Isabella signs, "I remember being that person who saw immediate need and responded immediately." That's what advocacy should be, eliminating the gap between recognizing need and meeting it. The school's director reports, "Isabella has revolutionized how we support families. Her approach isn't just about providing services, it's about building communities where deaf children and their families feel valued and supported." And friends, Isabella's story reminds us that heroism often looks like choosing someone else's urgent need over our own minor inconvenience. That true communication happens through actions as much as words, and that sometimes the most profound impact comes from quiet, consistent service. We all know people who sacrifice for others without expecting recognition. Share in the comments about someone who has inspired you with their selfless service or quiet generosity.
Isabella Martinez showed us that being a good citizen isn't just about following rules. It's about recognizing when human compassion should guide our choices. Judge Caprio's response to Isabella proved that justice isn't just about punishment. It's about recognizing and celebrating the actions that make our communities stronger. If you believe every child deserves protection, dignity, and a community that stands behind them, tap the like button and help this message reach more people. And before you go, make sure you subscribe to Case Closed, where we honor the everyday's heroes, quiet caretakers, and brave souls whose actions speak louder than anything they could ever say. Stories like this remind us of the legacy Judge Frank Caprio leaves behind, a legacy built not on power or punishment, but on humanity, grace, and the belief that real justice means lifting up the people who need it most. Judge Caprio taught the world that a courtroom isn't just a place for rulings. It's a place where compassion can change a life. So as you continue watching Case Closed, remember what Isabella showed us today. Sometimes the strongest voices are the ones spoken through kindness. Thank you for being here. And thank you for believing in the people who make our world more fair, more gentle, and more just. One quiet act at a time.